at 6:30. We're here this evening to talk about the future of Town Hall. This is a workshop for the council to kind of hear proposals from the manager and discuss next steps. There will not be public participation in this meeting. Of course, thank you all for coming and listening in. But this will probably be the first of many future conversations, of which there will be a point where there will be public input. But for this evening, it's just going to kind of be a discussion among the council and the staff. Tim, do you want to start us off?
Madam Chair, members of the council, good evening. Members of the public, and people on Zoom, good evening. So about 6 or 8 months ago, we started to dust off and refresh looking at the project of doing something different with the town office because of the conditions of the building and potential use of the space that we have. Cost of the maintenance of the building. So I have a quick PowerPoint tonight, 19 slides. Myself, Denise, Jen put this together. Kind of shows you what we've done a lot of research over the last 8 months. We're no further ahead today than we are yesterday. No, that's not good. We've gotten to a place now where I need some guidance and input from the council, some thoughts. I want to certainly thank Mike and his team, who's given us a lot of guidance and helped us out. Jen and Denise, who's put a lot of time in on this project. Jen especially, she's done a lot of research. So I'll start and go through this. At some points we have, I'll turn the floor over to Jen and I'll turn it over to Denise and it'll come back to me. Mike, jump in where you need to. So
This is Sarah Voorhees, my office.
yeah, and Sarah's been working with us on our little committee. So background, status, and future plans is what one of the headings we're gonna talk about tonight. Making the right decisions. Do we rehabilitate to stay, and why do we stay? So we're gonna talk about current location drawbacks, current location potential, exploring a new visions, exploring a new site, the town hall benefits, next steps and direction and guidance. The background work that's been done to date. We've spent a lot of time looking at the current facility. We read there was a town hall inspection that was done it was a real estate inspection. It was done on 2/23/21. We read an air handling report that was done for the police department, 2016. We looked at all that information. We took into effect the current status of our staffing levels. We took into effect the building condition, the growth, the vision of the future of tomorrow, and then we looked at plans for the future to stay or relocate. What will be the best options for everybody for the next 50 years or so going forward. That takes us to making the right decision. The right decision's got to be involved for everybody, for the South Berwick residents. This building really belongs, it's the building for the South Berwick residents to do their business with, all their day-to-day stuff. It's a building for us to provide that services to the residents. It's a business, it's a building for a new, for the business community to come in and visit, do their stuff. For the downtown South Berwick, for the town staff, and then for the employees and for the next 50 years. So rehabilitate or stay. So we looked hard at what does this building have to offer now? What do we have? And by the way, I'm battling a little head cold, so I have to sniffle a leave. Forgive me, I apologize. I don't have COVID. I tested all weekend. So the first issue that we found was the assessment that was done, the real estate assessment that I have a copy of. It was 66 pages. Here, you don't have that. I must have, I don't know if you have it. It identified some 60 things that by visual inspection needed to be repaired. That's just a visual inspection. So one of the things we need to look at is, we would need to look at doing a true assessment of the building. And that could be with a systems, with evaluation. Mike gave me this, kind of a price of thinking probably maybe 30,000 plus, maybe more.
Sorry, Tim, that's just to sort of figure out what needs to be done, the 30,000.
Well, that would be to assess what the building is. It'd be a building assessment.
Okay.
So what is, all this was here, this town hall inspection, when I read through it. And I want to make sure that it was town hall inspection that picked out 66 items that said everything from electrical to all old conduit, old electrical systems, old plumbing, leaky roofs, picked out all those things. This said this is an assessment that is only those defects observed on the day of the inspection. This was not an engineering assessment.
So nobody went into the wall.
Nobody went into the wall, nobody, all these pictures are, when you look at all these deficiencies, are pictures that you or I could have found, looking, some of them with a flashlight, all just things that they didn't, take any samples, they didn't do anything. So one of the things we know for a fact that needs to be addressed is the heating and air handling system. We're gonna have to stop budgeting money, or we're gonna end up at least, we're gonna get caught if we don't budget some money and put something aside. We are gonna have P. Gang and Son do an evaluation on the boilers to at least make sure that there'll be a good opportunity to get us through the winter, and do whatever we're gonna do to prime them up to make sure that they run. We're gonna look at putting a heat monitoring system in the building that'll maintain, if it drops below, if the heat shuts off and it goes below a certain temperature, it'll activate an alarm, call somebody. I think that's important. So in the process of looking at rehabilitating the building and staying in the building, the big question that came up around the table when we talked about it was continuously, where would we go to do this? And in long discussions with Mike and his team, Mike said, it can be done, but it's expensive to leave the staff there. Close off one side of the building or close off one end of the building and do something. And the best, most effective way to do that is vacate the building if we're gonna renovate it and leave. So that would ask that question, where do we go? And it'd be for a year where we perform our services, but we could all go. And Denise had a really good point on that. In other towns, there are vacant mills, or vacant schools, or vacant other buildings that you could go to. We don't have that luxury here. It's not really such a great place. Where can we find a place to lease? When we talked a lot about renovation costs, and a renovation cost, Mike estimated, could run between us 200 to 300 per square foot. That's an estimation of just the renovation cost. Remember, the problem with renovation as opposed to new build is every time they take a wall apart, they find something different. Your renovation cost now goes up more and more. So it's all the unknowns in the renovation cost. At 16,000 square feet to renovate, an estimate of 3.2 to 4.8 million. That's what you're looking at with this estimate right now. And this doesn't include the cost of leasing space for 1 year. We don't know where, but 100,000. It's an option. These are all things these are the things that we've talked about that we've been facing, trying to figure out on the committee. So that's to rehabilitate and stay. And then why stay? Well, I think one of the things we've heard a lot from is that the community seems to like the downtown location of the town office, right in the town square, right on Main Street. And that's a prominent New England Village kind of thing where, in a lot of New England villages years ago, the meeting hall, town hall, where town hall meeting concept came from, it was usually in a town hall meeting downtown or in the center of town. So that's one of the buildings familiar for the staff and the community. Everybody knows they know how to get in, they know how to get out. And the building is functionally operational as we speak. Some of the drawbacks that we encountered, and the first one is obvious egress and access from the town hall. It's tough to get in and out. Just, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning trying to get in, and then 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon trying to get out, you're waiting and waiting and waiting. The offices are designed, used by existing space. That they were just, they were created by, you know, as we needed them. They weren't created for the meeting space, the public, and the operational needs. So they're the offices. And a perfect example of that is you look at the clerk's office and how cornered that is, and, you know, and how we had to put up all the barriers and so forth. And, you know, it's not very welcoming and friendly, but it's a small space that we made fit. So some of the other drawbacks, the energy, the cost of the building, it's terribly expensive to heat that building. We're heating almost, what, 20,000 square feet, Mike, is that building?
Well, you probably have gross square footage. Yeah, there's no, the insulation of the building, the windows of the building are just really not the stuff.
You can't shut up.
No, you'll never catch up.
So, you know, we're heating a lot of space that's not being used in the daytime. You know, all the first floor, and most of the third floor. And it's what it is. And the same thing, third floor doesn't have air conditioning, obviously. You know, the maintenance and operational deficiencies, you know, the building's old, so like God said, none of the windows close tight. You know, we have water leaks in the roof. We've had several, you know, we've had problems with the air handling systems this year, where 2 or 3 offices, we've had water leaks from the air handling system where the pipes are leaking. You know, we've had, last year, we put what, $8,000 into the boilers. So this report, just in one day of them, or however long they were here, identified 66 deficiencies. Going around and finding everything that was that they report on, they could see. HVAC equipment, fuel lines, thermostat, windows, walls, ceilings, plumbing fixtures, stairwell cabinets. Doors, sidewall systems, window conditions, insulation condition, ductwork, service panels, floor lamps, plumbing, chimneys got cracks in it, walls with stains on them, walls and surfaces with numerous water stains, ceilings with surface stains. So those are all the things that they could see, you know, and including rodents in the building, rodents in the office space, rodents in the kitchen. We do, you know, we have traps but.
And
I
if, sorry to interrupt, but if there's that many just visually obvious things, Lord knows what's underneath.
Well, that's the
That's
point
the
of the,
point, yeah.
when we talked about a true assessment, I think that's one of the things that Mike and his team and we talked about, was we're more concerned with, as Mike said, it's hard to give you a true estimate on what a renovation would be. We don't know what's really there right now.
Mhm.
So,
See, there's a note in there, they found knob and tube wiring in there still,
They found what?
knob and tube wiring.
That's not a
You know,
thing.
they found that in the walls, you know, and I'm not sure it's active or not, but they found it, you know, so.
right,
It's those kinds of things, you know, it's an old building, and to really do to do the job, you almost have to gut the building, you know, and then really start from scratch, insulated, new windows, new mechanical systems, and there's no ventilation in the building, except for the air plant for the windows. But to meet current ventilation standards, which you have to have, especially the pandemic, and you think about that, there's no ventilation in the building, there's no makeup air system in there. And you have to have makeup air in a new building. It's just when you button it up, make it airtight, but you have to have to save energy, you have to have a makeup air system. So these are things that you have to do, but we do with this old buildings, we do this in all buildings all the time. So these are fundamental parts of the making a healthy workplace.
Question, up until this point, all this like rehab stuff that we're talking about, is this talking about kind of sticking with our existing layout, footprint, all of that? Or is this a full gut of the building?
I would say this is a full, Well, so that's a question you guys will have to answer.
Okay.
Would you only want to repair half of that? But I think under code under code, when you start doing it, you would have to
Mhm.
upgrade the air handling system. You have to fix the windows. Then that means you'd have to fix, one's gonna not let you do
It's
the other. You're gonna lead, it's gonna take you to, the plumbing, and then when they tear the walls open, they see all that old conduit electrical, they would have to take that out. And then, so you're not gonna put in new windows and have an improper air handling system. You couldn't do it. Code wouldn't let you. So,
By code, it works like this, is that when you go over 50% of the value of the building for the cost of renovation, you have to comply with all current codes.
so my whole piece on this was first off, just to bring you up to speed on our current bill. I just want to let this is just getting you up to speed. So this is all the stuff we've learned digging into this report, reading these reports, talking with Mike, talking with the staff, the crew. This is the stuff we learned. Some of the drawbacks that we find on the next page. The boilers we estimate are right around 50 years old. They've been replaced once when they renovated the building, but we think they're right around 50 years old. There's some old electrical, the electrical tube and knob wiring. It's present, we can see it. Again, like Mike said, we don't know if it's used. Some of it's buried in the floors and the walls, we can't tell. The air handling system is not functional, as we talked about. The windows are leaky, the chimney's got cracks, roof leaks, ductwork leaks. And then in that note, this doesn't include what's behind the walls. Well, the next piece is the current location potential, and I'm gonna turn this over to Denise and have her go through that stuff.
Thank you. So selling the old town hall, that is one of the options that we discussed, and that's being presented to you this evening. Case in point, the building and the property is very much prime real estate for development. It's on the main street, very busy main street, lots of traffic, lots of volume, has high visibility. It would be a great building asset to put back on the tax rolls. The sale, at the outset, I think you had a initial business, opinion of value, and it said about 1.5 million is what we generated as of last year. So that would put the property back on the tax rolls. Right now, it's tax exempt, and so you could generate at a minimum with the building size 30,000, and depending on the reuse and the number of businesses and personal property, you could generate a lot more. So then you could also sell by RFP rather than going with a commercial broker. I have experience selling several buildings, municipal buildings, and have saved anywhere from $80,000 to $200,000 worth of commercial broker fees by selling by RFP. The other great part about selling it as a municipality is you're able to create criteria for highest and best use. So it just doesn't go to anybody. And so that's an asset that you could probably consider rather than listing. The other piece is, I know folks have expressed concerns about losing the green space, losing parking. You could actually build out the RFP and the criteria that the municipality still retains ownership of the green and create a park or keep it as a green. You could also require, and I think Mike's the one that brought up this great point, that the first level be all retail. So whatever it is used for the other levels, at the base level is for retail services. Then you could also develop a public-private partnership so you could retain access for free downtown parking.
So with all of that information, we decided if we were gonna leave, where are we gonna go? So the places that we have looked at and considered so far is, first, we were in a report with all of the lots that the town owns. Then we wanted to narrow it down because we wanted to stay fairly close to downtown because that's what people are familiar with. We did look at the lot right across the street here. We do own a piece of land there, but it's very narrow, and it just didn't seem to, the building wouldn't fit there well. We looked in the middle of the green space next to the fire department, but we did not want to lose that green space, and the neighborhood obviously has concerns with taking away any green space, which we don't want to do.
Hold on one second. So I want to make it clear tonight while we're speaking, that I have not authorized to build a town hall in the playground area at the park. We have not done that. We've not agreed to sell, do anything. I haven't sold the town office. We're not building a town hall there. I have said it 1,000 times and I keep saying it, we're a million miles away from that. But a rumor got going in the Shoetown neighborhood, you know, we would work with them if we were gonna go there and do something there. Obviously, we've had some communication with some of them. But, you know, a lot of people have vocalized that, you know, oh, that's a bad place. So it was just, we were just looking at it, was just a place of interest. Because we own, you know, and we were gonna try and offset it with another playground, a newer playground, so forth. It was just an area, so there's been no commitment to the Shoetown neighborhood to that. There's been no commitment to anything. This is all in just exploratory work that we're looking at, that's all.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Yep, so we had looked at the very open big green space in that area, and then we also considered possibly if we were to build where the playground is currently, we could maybe put the playground where the tennis courts are. It was just another thing we had talked about, seeing how the police department, there was talk about doing it there as well. But we, after talking with Mike, we were looking at plans, that space would be a little bit tight and it wouldn't leave us the room to grow to be able to be the town hall for 50 or 100 years. And that is our goal, is to make it be good for a long time. We looked at Powder House Hill, the bottom of the hill. We did put the basketball courts there, and the space that's left, again, is not sufficient space for what we would need for the town hall and parking. We thought about selling the current building that the town hall is in now and maybe building out front in that green space. But again, we thought too small, don't want to lose the small green space that we do have downtown. We met with the owner from Aroma Joe's, and he was very willing and open to work with the town about different ideas. We talked about either putting our building, the town hall right where he is now. Then we also discussed he wouldn't want to close businesses. We could put it behind, sell a portion of the current town hall lot, build the building kind of sideways behind where Aroma Joe's and Subway currently is, leave the businesses open, incorporate them into the first floor of what would be a new town hall in that space, and then make green space out front. But at that point, one party would have to be the landlord, one party would have to own the land. The Aroma Joe's really didn't want to give up his land. He just bought it last year. So again, just another thing we've explored. The most recent spot that we have been exploring is the Railroad Ave parking lot has 2.2 acres, again, that the town owns. We could very easily fit a new town hall with additional parking in that spot. And that's at one site that we're exploring now, which is this picture right here that shows the parking area that currently there now, which is next to Cummings Mills.
The next slide you have in your packet.
And the spot that we would be looking at doing is right here where I'm circling towards the bottom, towards the corner of Norton Street and Railroad Ave. That would leave enough room to put the building there, leave parking, possibly even more parking. Is there anything you want to elaborate on
Yeah, I
that?
think that's, that's a good alternative. It puts the town hall right in the crossroads of, two streets that get used quite a bit. You can see it as prominent. You can see it from Main Street. It doesn't kind of lose its connection to downtown. And there is a lot of people living around that area right there. And so it's a viable site. And the good thing about it is that it's on the street and it's in the town area, within the town center.
You're right by the post office
I actually,
and the bank.
Yeah, so it's really close to everything. Obviously, we want to put it sort of right in the center of town, but it's close.
I did do a Google map, and from the center of town, like, where the traffic intersection is, we would be almost exactly the same distance, just on the other side of it.
Take a
of
right,
the
side left.
intersection,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are just, we just wanted to make
I
sure,
have a comment on that site. That was a drainage area,
that still
and
is.
there's a pipe
Yeah, we've got,
that
we ran all
goes
that.
northerly
Yep.
from Norton Street, getting out that way.
Yep.
Yep.
And so it wasn't always a pipe though. It was a gully running all the way out behind the Street Baptist Church. free, yeah, it's a free. And so that was like made land, so to speak. So that's just cautionary, make sure we're cool with the drainage. And
Yes.
then there would be a geotechnical analysis, because the soil was dumped there, it's adequate enough to hold up a parking lot and some lights, but when you get point loads associated with the building, we need to have that due diligence to make sure that,
And because the site is so big, we would certainly not want to build on top of that area. And there's, yeah, we have talked to Mike about that, talked to Jay Regenmarker to make sure everybody knows where that concrete culverts are underneath the parking lot.
I think the assumption is that that land below there is pretty much not good. It's basically a fill area.
well, I mean, we're building Home Depots and Jordan's Furniture's on top of landfills right now. I mean, that exists down in Reading, Massachusetts, the cost of real estate so high. I mean, there's no place that says you can't build there, but there is cost associated if you have differential, placement of fills and underlying soils like Mike talks about.
Absolutely. So these are just, the top things that we have looked at in trying to find the best spot for the town hall, if it were to be new, if we were to build, in trying to keep it as close as we can to downtown, as well as keeping as many parking spots as we can as well.
Okay. So at the end, where could we locate a town hall? And I think the last one that has been explored is probably one of the more viable options. So where could we have existing town-owned property? So essentially, we would not have to be taking this property off the tax rolls. It already is. So it's tax exempt property. We're not removing something from the business community. It's still proximate walking distance to the downtown. And it's also in the community center fire station area. So it's already a hub of community activity. On to the next slide. Office space needs really at about the 10,000 square foot level is what we need. We currently have 16,000 plus, depending on usable space. So, but we have an inefficient space of 16,000. This would make it a more efficient 10,000 square foot building. There would be no disruption to services and no relocation issues. We could stay operational up until move in. Again, the property tax from the town hall, depending on what that would generate, would offset whatever the bond payment is. We were guided that the new building costs could run anywhere from 350 to 400 per square foot, giving us a high estimate using the higher cost of 4 million for new construction. But if you assume that you're going to sell at 1.5 million or more, you would end up with a cost to the taxpayers of 2.5. So at the end of the day, the higher cost really would be to renovate. So that's a consideration that is food for thought. So what would a new town hall be? It would be energy efficient, less obviously money on an annual basis on maintenance, repairs, and operations. It would be state of the art and designed and positioned for growth. Better accessibility for everybody, for the community, for businesses, for staff. Definitely would provide much easier access and egress into the facility, still walking distance to downtown. And again, as we stated before, it's in the community center, community space area. So we found that this site at this point in time, before any kind of due diligence and test borings and the like, is a really serious viable option for you folks to consider.
So we worked hard the last 6 or 8 months cramming this in to get a lot of stuff done. Mike, I want to give you the opportunity, give you the floor. Anything you want to add, or would you give us some ideas, thoughts? If you've been sitting in on the meetings, tell us, from your perspective. Are we in the right spot? Are we heading in the right area? Are we talking? Where are we at from your perspective?
Well, obviously, everybody likes the downtown, the town hall where it is. I mean, that's really kind of what everybody likes. And I like it because I can walk there, and I think that's a key. But it's also central, but it's also impossible to get in and out of there if you drive. It really is tough. And the building is an old building. The building was built in the 1930s, and it's been renovated a few times, but the renovations are so old that, they don't really meet any kind of current requirements for energy or interior air quality or things like that. And the building would really have to go through a significant, renovation and, gut rehab to really last another 50 years. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it again in 20 years. If you go in, we've done a lot of mill buildings, we've done a lot of old buildings. And what I've learned over many, many years is that if you go into these things and you don't do a complete job, you wind up spending more time and money in the near future, going back and fixing things. It really is a problem. It's just the way it is. And so the costs of what they are, cost of construction, as everybody knows, has gone up crazy. It's, what we're doing today for $350, we were doing for $250 or $200, or $300 4 or 5 years ago. It's gone up 50% probably the last 4 or 5 years. So if you're going to invest money, you have to really invest your money correctly. And the second thought is that, we've talked about using the upper floors for rental space, rent the upper floor out to somebody else, because you only need 10,000 square feet. The building has usable square footage about 16,000 square feet. And that's 6,000 square feet more that you have to renovate. And if you can't really renovate 10,000 and not do the whole building, you really can't do that because of code compliance and things like that, and everything else concerned with, with bringing the building up to current standards. So you've always kind of got this issue of, overburden of square footage and cost of the work. And the cost to build a new building and to renovate, they really are about the same because you tear it down and put it back up in place again. So if you can imagine, the costs are the same, even though you're reusing a lot of the bits and pieces. We've discovered that also over many, many years. Trying to find a space downtown would make a lot of sense to put a new building up. As much as I want to keep it where it is right now would be great. We looked at trying to use the space in the back parking lot to see if that would work. We looked at every single conceivable opportunity that putting it in front, just staying on the first floor of the building out the front. We looked at all those options. And it always goes back to, you really can't do part of the building. You really can't do this part and we'll go back and do the rest of it. That never really works. So you either make a commitment to stay in town hall and you realize that it's going to cost this much money. You realize you have to do this work. You really have to get this thing torn down to the bones and look at what you have there. To make sure the loading is correct, make sure the windows and doors are correct, make sure the fire ratings are correct, to make sure the air quality is correct, the heating is correct, the insulation, and then rebuild it. And then it'll last another 50 years or 60 years for the next renovation. But you're going to be out of the building for a year. It would take, everybody thinks 6 or 7 months. It never takes, it always takes much longer. If anybody's renovated their bathroom, the guy says, I'll get it done in 3 weeks. He's there 2 months later. And that's the way with renovation projects. New construction, when it begins, when it ends, because it's a process. It starts with the geotech work, the site work, the civil work, and it goes right through the final punch list of painting. You know what that is. For the renovation work, you always have to figure you're going to spend twice as much time doing that. And the other big issue is you really don't want to have a renovation project of any type with occupancy. It's going to add 30% of the cost right off the bat. If it costs $200, it's $260. If it's $300, it's $390 or whatever that is. It will really add a tremendous amount of cost, and it'll also make the operations just absolutely miserable. We've done hospitals like that. We did Kittery Training Post. If anybody remembers that renovation, we did that when they were in there. And that was very, very complicated. That was a very complicated renovation, and they have 1 million people going in and out of their year. So, and it added about 35 to 40% of the cost for that renovation project. But that was different for them because that's time and money. We had the money to do that work. So, so that's one thought process. And the other thought process is new building. And, there aren't a whole lot of spots in downtown to put buildings. We look very hard to keep looking at places. And maybe we have to spend a little more time thinking about each spot and thinking about what they are and, the potential for, long-term growth, accessibility and use. That part of town over there has started to grow anyway. I'm always surprised what they're building down Railroad Avenue. There's always more stuff being added there. So this really, the town is kind of, the downtown area is becoming more dense in that direction. So is that downtown kind of moving the center of town? It may, The other important thing by putting a larger structure, a two-story structure, which I think it really should be, is it adds fabric to the town. There's a tall mill building, there's other, but most of the buildings are two-story, so it adds that fabric in the town. And no matter where it goes, it really shouldn't be a single-story building if it's in a downtown area. It should be a prominent two-story structure. It should be a smaller footprint. The costs for the footprint become less. It pays for the elevator stairs, so it's more efficient. I think that's really it. I think you need to sort of weigh each option and decide what is most important, both for the short term and long term, and then make a decision. I can help you in this, but I can't really say yes or no because I think both of them are viable. It's just whatever the council thinks is the right way to go.
With your consideration for the office space needing 10,000 square feet in this new two-story potential building off Railroad and Norton, we look at the fire station and we look at maybe our fire department's needs 10 years down the road or whatever, in a building with shares of recreational facilities. Will there be a need further down the road to have increased space at a town hall for other departments to come into if we need to renovate the fire department later on down the road? Just kind of wanted to flag that. And then I also like to just have Denise maybe kind of speak about if the town hall we put out an RFP for the town hall and what type of long-term tax implications that could be. So we've been talking about like a TIF district downtown, like, could you just dive a little bit deeper potentially?
So obviously selling the building is an extremely great idea if you choose to vacate the building and new construct. You obviously have a very prime piece of real estate that is not used, for tax purposes. 30,000 is just building assessment, current building assessment taxes. So that does not include if it's broken up into business units, for retail, if it's used for a hotel or if it's used for any other purpose. Now, as far as the TIF district, independent of that, when I made the presentation a few months back, every property tax dollar, 70 cents is lost right from the town. And so you have 30 cents on every dollar. So if it's in a TIF district and you have that new valuation now, that 1.5 million generating 30,000, 100% of that would actually retain itself in a downtown district or an economic development district. So any new growth. So it would behoove you to explore definitely TIF district, especially if that is going to be on the tax rolls or any other new development on the main street. And out of the 30,000, simple math is you get to keep what, 30% of that? That's $9,000. Whereas, one of it goes to reduce state subsidy, for education and revenue sharing and an increase in county taxes. So it definitely is a very good idea. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Is there anything on the TIF topic, whether with the existing TIF or potential future, to utilize TIF funds to pay for part of the building? Is that a thing?
So it paid for part of the municipal, the new municipal building?
Yeah, like
Okay.
construction.
So it is in your best interest. It cannot, in a summary,
Okay.
for municipal, unless you actually buy it, sell it, and lease it back from them.
Got it,
Because that's
okay.
improving a new facility. But what it can do, and Tim, Jen, and I have talked about this, is whatever is in a TIF district, that can pay for capital infrastructure improvements, roads, sidewalks, general obligation bonds. We talked about the road general obligation bond. We can pay a portion of that. You need new fire equipment. You can pay prorated portions of that. And so that pulls out of the general fund budget. And so then now your general fund budget goes down because it's 100% funded or prorated funded out of the TIF district. Okay. Good question. Thank you.
Sorry, you've been quiet. You got anything?
No, I think Mike explained the process that we've gone through pretty well. so.
He keeps Mike in line at a meeting. You Yes, Jeff.
The presentation didn't include any comments on meeting space. We need space in this building for public hearings. We need space for elections, and we
Yes.
need space
Yeah.
for people to come in. So what,
Hang on, let me move on. Let me get to where I'm going. That's on there. It's,
no, it isn't.
no, it's not on here, but I'm gonna get to you.
Oh, I thought we were,
No, I
I
haven't
would
got to
do
you.
comments. Okay, I'll wait.
So one of the things, where do we go from here? Part of where I think we gotta go to is conduct a systems assessment and a building evaluation. We gotta decide. There's two parts, and the system assessments is exactly what Jack just brought up. What do we need? We've already identified what we think we need for space. We need, we've identified some stuff, what you need for space. One of the things the council needs to identify is exactly what Jack's talking about. Are you gonna hold meetings there, or are we gonna hold, we're gonna have a room big enough to have, say, hold 100 people, and beyond 100 people, we go to the school or something. Is there voting gonna be there, or is voting gonna be somewhere else? That's stuff we gotta work out. Talk about true assessment of, at some point, the building. So now, from Councilor James, it always comes up, Councilor James, to his point, says, well, I'm not spending another penny in that building. I get that. But somehow we gotta come up with an assessment, or not do an assessment, say we're out of that building, either one. But we've got to come up with some factual ideas as to get to our solid answer of where we're going. And then establish a clear path through the renovation, or establish a clear path to sell the old town hall property and build a new one. And that includes where we're at now, all the groundwork we've done over the last 6 to 8 months to get to where we are tonight, and time frame. So now I'm gonna ask you to individually give me the council's thoughts, individually and collectively. And also, we have considered like conference rooms and so forth, but I think there's other pieces to this. And I need to have, we're at a stop point for us. We're at the intersection. So now it's time to talk a little more about, what are your thoughts? We haven't got to that point. Tonight's to that point. Tonight, I need your council input. Mike,
Maybe I could just answer Jack's question. Jack, I think the key answer to your question is that.
I didn't even get to ask it yet.
You were
It's
talking
very
about-
prescient, Mike. You
We're talking about
mind
public
up.
space, the conference room, we're gonna talk about those things, but no matter where the building is located, where it's at, we're still gonna look at creating at grade public space. This is a people's building. So the concept here is what does a people's building have that everybody uses? It's a space like this right here. You want to have a space on the first floor that has windows that's open to the public. They can see the work that the public is doing. You can look inside, see the council activities. You can see bigger assemblies. There are doors outside that lead to public spaces outside. So that it becomes a gathering place. So I think no matter where this goes, we have to create that kind of public space that really allows then activity to take place, so that you go to town meetings, you go to town functions, you go and register your car at the first level. It's easy to do, it makes a lot of sense. And also we have then, the council chambers are also on the first floor, lots of glass, looking outside with outdoor space. So you can have events that occur there. I think that would be a really important thing, no matter how we do this.
Is that's type of space sounds great. Is that included in like what were the 10,000 square feet that we're
Right.
estimating? That large space is included in the 10,000? Okay.
Regardless if we renovate or build new, we're gonna make sure that there's plenty of room for council, for everything that everybody needs, and for 50 to 100 more years. That's the plan, regardless where we are, where we end up.
Part of this would be a working, down the road, we'll do a working group that would, just like they did for this building, that we would do the finite stuff. But tonight I need work, so we've come to a focal point in the road. And I need to get your council's input so I can figure out what's next for moving this forward. So that's really all we have. And I want to thank Denise, I want to thank Mike and Sarah and Mike's staff, Jen for all the hard work. It was really tough doing this with a new budget, new staff, new people, all the other stuff, keeping everything going, but we covered a lot of ground, I think, in 6 to 8 months. So I'm curious to hear what council's thoughts are.
Anyone want to go first?
I will. I thank you for all the work. It seems like there's been a ton of options, and I thank you for the presentation tonight. Initially my gut feeling was like stay put and figure this out until I heard Denise say this could be a multi-use kind of facility. And I think our town needs business space downtown. I think carving out the parking in the back of the building would be a very smart option to keep that parking downtown and still make everything accessible. I am really looking for whatever building that we move forward to be energy efficient and to have upgraded systems, and whatever we can do to lessen our environmental impact, is something I would really look forward to myself. Again, my comments just about the need for potential space in whatever building that we look forward as we look at other town facilities and those needs later on. I kind of agree with John. If we are looking to move forward with moving this building, I don't know, I would want to put money towards a systems assessment, but that's just,
Just to piggyback off of that with the assessment piece, so if we were to go down the path of let's build new, let's sell the building, like, are we required to complete an assessment like
No.
that prior to the sale? Okay,
No, we don't, that's only if we're gonna plan on staying there,
Got
then we
it,
need to, that would be part of that project, is
Okay.
doing a needs assessment in that building, so.
anything else?
Going back to sheet 5 of the presentation, there's no mention of the public in that, on that slide, and I think that's something we need to focus on.
Which one? Which one?
Page 5. They're not numbered, but I numbered mine.
One, two.
Making the right decision is the header.
Yeah, the South Berwick residents is the first one.
It's the first one.
Yeah, for access, but the public and the public space of this building is a critical part of what we need, because there's gonna be a point of sale on this. We have to sell the public that the decision that's being made is the correct decision. And we need-
Jack, go
Let
ahead.
him finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so I remember meetings, my first budget as a counselor, we had the town offices full. We cut the budget by $241,000. It was for the fiscal year 2011, 2012, and it was hot. And the people were hot. They didn't say no to any article except the last one where they said, no, we, go find the money because we were over LD1. And it was tough. We cut back services, we cut back a lot of things, and we've had other hot issues. If we bring up something that John and I like to talk about in terms of the bad old days, there was a point in time where we talked about limiting fireworks in town because there was a particularly hot 4th of July. This room would not make it. This size of room would not make it. Our former council chambers barely made it. And there have been other things where people come out and there's, we're living through good days right now, is what I'm saying. It's not always been like this. And we've had some tough meetings and where people needed to be heard, even with the consideration of the police station. The folks from Shoetown came up and they wanted some answers. And so we need to be able to accommodate that within the building. And I really believe that it's one thing to say we need the space for staff, council, that sort of thing, but we really, really need that public meeting space. And what that magic number is, I know we've discussed in the past that perhaps, via Zoom and things like that, we won't need as many seats in the room because people will choose to tune in, just like with the various marijuana meetings that we've had. A lot of people chose to tune in. We had 40 people on the video. So that's a really, really big deal. We do not want to make the same mistake as Agunquit made. They're scrambling right now because they chose to take the short-term view and create the Dunaway Center as their town offices. It is inadequate. And so we need to make sure we have eyes wide open. And if we show that we've considered these sorts of things, and it's not gonna be my decision, I got 4 more meetings to go. But always remember that there's a point of sale. It doesn't matter about all the homework and all the work that was done. We're gonna have new people that are gonna show up. And they're gonna wanna know, what about this and what about that? And we have to have the numbers. And so I would spend the money up front, just like we spent the money on the survey for the comprehensive plan, but have the groundwork. It's gonna show a real number for the assessment and the estimated costs. And whatever that is, I mean, we're not gonna take the building apart to do the assessment, but to have a real solid number to say, this is what it would be for this type of renovation. That would be the equivalent of, say, an 8,000 square foot footprint on 2 stories. I think that, 120 by 70 seems to be right sized. Just that's a swag number, but it seems like that's a good goal to have. And I support what Mike's talking about on 2 stories. But that's the analysis that I have in terms of trying to sell this to the public. Because thank you very much for showing up. Early days, you 4 in person, but there will be many more. And because we've heard, just like we heard the first glimmers of, thinking about doing the tennis court, shoot down, all the rest of the stuff, and that brought up the police station debate again. And so we have to make sure our ducks in a row, because there's going to be people on both sides of the fence, and also the fact of where we are with respect to our bonding. We're in a good situation right now, bonding wise. We're below our suggested limits as far as bonding. We're in good shape. People pay their bills. We have a very favorable bond rating. This building proved it. We estimated 3.5%. We closed on this bond at 3.17. And so we have very, very good finances. So Southburg is a good risk, but we have to prove, because with inflation going up and people's retirement plans going down, they're going to want to know. And I could just encourage anybody who's listening tonight, pay attention to what's going on in the schools, because what the schools did to us in this budget cycle last time is a travesty, and created what I think was an unnecessary burden to taxpayers.
Thanks. Tim, you had something in there.
Yeah, so I didn't touch on it tonight, Jack, but we have touched on that conversation. We talked about meeting space, room, so forth. We have talked. It's a little farther down in the weeds than where we're at right now. We haven't got quite there. We're still on the 30,000 foot level, talking about the building itself, whether that's all, but that's an absolutely valid point, and one we would want to take in. That one of the pieces that Mike has really brought into the committee, not so much a committee, but just working with us, is honing in that has both a citizen and a community, and the job he does is that this is the public building. That's what I said when I started my presentation. This is the public building, and we have to make the right space for the public. We have to make the right space for the employees too, but for the public and for the council and the council chambers and the meeting space. We have to make it a good functional building. So we're many, many meetings, you're right, away from all that. And the public would certainly have a point of, to have input and so forth. But that's why I wasn't mentioned in here. We're not there. I mean, we looked at different things, but would a room the size of the community center room work with something that big? Do you use that big enough, or is that smaller? Is that what you're thinking? I mean, something like that. I'm just hypothetically asking.
All I know is that we had the fire chief show up at one of those hot meetings, and when we were in the Gagne auditorium, the existing auditorium we have at Town Hall, and that has a capacity of 300. And George George Gorman saying, "I'm really nervous. I don't want to shut this down, but we're there." You know what that's. You hit that number. You hit that number, and it would have been a riot if we told people they had to leave.
Yeah. And I think,
forget what the issue was on that particular night, but it was physically hot and people were hot.
yeah, so
Emotionally hot.
I mean, And that'll be one of the things I think with the working group when they start to design a building and stuff. What are the needs? What are we looking to accomplish with a specific building? And is that something, if we had that hot button topic, if we're gonna do the fireworks permitting again, maybe that public hearing would be at Marshwood High School in the auditorium, you know, maybe it would be at some place that you would hold, you know, enough people that you wouldn't have that.
I'll be sick that week.
Do you really want to be beholden to the school?
I don't think so. I don't
Seriously?
think so. I think we all started out with,
God, no.
you know, with our town halls were the parish halls. That's where it all started in New England. We, you know, whether it was a church hall. And that's what people gathered because that was the focal point of the community. And so I like that model. And I think that this also serves as, if it's gonna be a couple of blocks away from where it is right now, 3 blocks away. Again, we have to create that focal point so people can really say, this is the heart of our town. And there's ways to do that with bricks and mortar, but there's also ways for people to embrace that. And that's why we have folks like you who can create that vision. To say, okay, this is how it's gonna be sold and it'll have a useful function. At the right cost.
Denise, I had something.
Yeah, just wanted to say, to Tim's point, you know, this didn't go into the weeds. That said, there's a little bit of a weedy comment on the drawbacks on page 8 that does say that the current offices are designed for use by existing space, does not address staff, public, meeting space and operational needs. So we are considering it. It's just on the drawback slide rather than on the new site's going to have one meeting space. So it's actually been a serious topic of conversation.
Yeah, I read that, excuse me, for interrupting, but I read that as, you know, we took an old Catholic school
Mhm.
and on 3 stories and we divvied it up. You know, we took classroom space and then fit
Cookie
offices in there. So
exactly.
it was backed in. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
It wasn't purpose built.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever we build new or renovation would be purpose built
Mhm.
for
Absolutely.
the specific need.
John? What do you think?
What? You're waiting.
I've been waiting for a long time,
So hold on to your hats on this one.
please.
I'm gonna go, so starting off, we need to do assessment on the building. We have to. I hate spending money on that building. I think it's waste. It's throwing money out the window, but we need to do an assessment because after going through the debacle of the police station and how we got there and the time we spent, which was more than we ever should have, we need to be able to put up front to the public why that building that everybody loves is not a viable option. We have to sell that. My opinion of where we should go doesn't matter. The other 7,000 residents matter. The only thing I do is I don't want to increase my taxes because I'm already paying double what I did when I moved here and I'm not happy about it. But that being said, that building is going to come down around our ears. Right, so we need to do something, but I think we need to start with the assessment, find out what it's gonna cost. We know the elevator is bad. That's not even on the list of
I
visual
was out of
assessments,
service
right?
today.
We know the elevator is bad. We know that. We know from Perry's assessments and just walking around, we know the stuff is bad. So if we have that assessment, and then I think we need to, here we go again, this is coming from me, get a committee together of business people from downtown that this could possibly affect, and community leaders, have them get together and look at viable options in town where we could put it or what we should do and get their feedback. Let them work with the public. Don't put a counselor on that committee. We need to stay completely objective. So do it. It's the same with you. Don't put you on the committee. Don't put Jen on the committee. Get some business owners and some community leaders and let them come up to us with some suggestions. It'll be an easier sell to the public. And that we put people on there, then it's not gonna stop the complaints we're getting left and right because half the people that complain, there's nobody here. Thank you for coming, but I don't believe I saw any of your 4 names on Facebook today complaining about the possibility of the town hall. So thank you. But we have to get public buy-in. And I think that's the only way we're gonna do it. Show them what the need is and get the community involved to help us out. Not what you're expecting from me.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine.
Jeff? What do you think?
I just have a couple of questions. Our current, right now, we've got a lot of new people. What are we at for usage on the floors right now? Like what, if first floor is just council chambers really,
Which
right?
isn't anything now.
All right, so
Just that meeting, it's
It's
really
a
a
meeting room now,
meeting room now.
and we're basically at 100% on the second floor.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
well,
then
if we
the
could-
third floor is about the same as the first, right?
Nothing.
There's nobody out there, right?
Elections and.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, if that be, I'm guessing,
I would say, Jeff, in reality, the second floor is 150%. We just,
Yeah.
people have stuff into, I mean, you look at the clerk's office, that is, she's got the safe in there, they have little tiny workspaces. It's cut up, that could double in size adequately. You could take another space exactly that, open that up and have it a much more open space for working conditions and storage and, the wall. So that's just her space. That's not the, then you look at the economic developer and the assessor now split the room where you guys used to be in your meeting room. That's now shared between them and Diane's office and Verna's office, and there's 3 offices in there now.
Yeah. So
So,
that's like 5,000 square feet-ish, per floor,
65,
right? 55. Yeah,
65.
so basically,
So we had the conference room that we're using downstairs and 2 of the offices for file run storage.
one of the things that I would like to see a little bit more as we move forward, and I liked what you guys did here. When I read, why stay, I see, I'll just label them nice and easy for you. I see an emotional reason, and a functional reason why we should stay, right? Everyone likes the old building, and we like the old building. And then it's functional currently, right? And then the drawbacks essentially are all functional, not necessarily what I would classify as emotional. I'd like to see, are there any more functional reasons to stay?
We tried.
Yeah,
We tried.
No,
yeah.
such as what, Jeff? Like,
I don't know, I mean,
Aroma Joe's is next door.
right,
Yeah,
right.
walking distance to the coffee shop.
Well,
See parking.
So I don't want to be the one to rip it apart, I'd rather the
Yeah, I know it's not.
South Berwick Bulletin rip it apart, but for me, I look at and I see the street, the parking, that's the first reason, the location drawbacks from the current one. And it says access and egress from town hall, okay, and then traffic challenges.
Right.
I'm not an expert, but I don't see that being a much better, Norton Street Railroad Ave being much better for traffic. I would need to be sold on that, and I think the town would need to be sold on that, because the traffic on Norton and Railroad, that traffic's horrible no matter when, or where we're at. So I'm nervous about that, about a selling point. And then I understand the cost, right? So if I had, I'm no Bob Vila, but I've been a part of some stuff where I've taken old houses and ripped them down, and then we rebuilt them up. And the ripping down does cost money, even though Ty Pennington on DIY makes it look like it's a lot of fun. But the next one is offices designed for use. If we're gonna rip everything down to the walls, aren't we gonna be doing that? Aren't our offices in the current town hall going to be built for the use?
No, sorry to interrupt you. I think what they mean here is like the way our current setup is we're being forced into a certain
Okay,
setup given what we have.
right,
today.
but also on the flip side of that, a drawback for the current building is that they're designed. So they're saying a benefit to relocating is that we can build an office as we need to.
Jeff,
So I'm just saying, we're gonna be rebuilding.
so like Jack said, we took a 1930s Catholic school with 8-foot wide hallways.
Yeah.
And the classrooms designed for 30 students or 40 students, whatever that was. With brick walls in the middle, bearing walls are about that thick in each of the hallway, bearing walls on the outside. And then 2 by 12 or whatever that is, dug for floor joists.
Yeah.
And squeaky floors. And that's the way it was built. You know,
So it's-
So it's not even purpose built for a school, but to make it purpose built for offices, we don't need 8-foot hallways. So we're talking about maybe cutting bigger holes in the brick walls, putting beams in there to make the offices, make the spaces work better. To make the spaces efficient, we need to get the 8-foot hallway down to something smaller than that.
That's what I need to hear, because
I think that's,
I wanted to, I'm not
yeah, I think
understanding.
that's the real key. And that's really the big issue with renovating. Schools are great apartment buildings, but even there are problems because they're 8-foot wide hallways. So they wind up taking hallway space and making closets and stuff and
Yeah.
mechanical rooms and things like
So,
that.
so the other thing that you just brought up, Jeff, the tail side of that, is if we gutted the building and built it back for a user space, we'd still have a building that was 7,000 or 8,000 feet too big for what we need that we'd be paying to heat and cool.
Sure.
Right? So we still have 7,000 or 8,000 square feet of a building we really can't use that we're gonna pay to heat and cool year round.
Right.
And renovate and pay for with no additional tax dollars.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, then that was another thing I also, as a brainstorm idea, is it even a possibility? Let's say that that we're actually saying we want to look at both options, right? Is it even a possibility to say, town members, you guys are so concerned about this, whatever auditorium is on the 3rd floor. Is it a crazy idea to think that a community could say, we want to create a Friends of the 3rd floor town hall where they're helping to restore and raise money to take that off of the town's pocketbook? If it's that much, like, I care a lot about things, but I'm not necessarily going to put my money towards it. But things that I do care about, I do put my money towards. Is that even worth fleshing out as a possibility?
Fenestrations are just awful. Windows, I mean, they're terrible. I mean, people have asked why we don't have June annual budget meetings.
Right.
You could fry a fish in there.
Even
I
if
mean, you can bake a
you
fish.
could in November in 2018.
Even if it offset the cost, the taxpayers are still gonna have to pay for that building year after year. No one's gonna offset that cost, right? I go back to the playground that the Children's Leadership Council built for us. Beautiful playground. They were funding it. All of a sudden, they dissolved. Now the town owns a playground that the town never voted to own. Nobody in this town ever said, hey, we want to pay for this playground. Now, it's a great playground and we need it, but the townspeople never got a say in that playground.
Mhm.
So, yes, it would be great for them to bring that money to get the building done, but then we still have to pay for it in the end.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of quick funding.
Yeah, you would need a sinking fund. So, the care and feeding of the space after those folks are done. It happened with the town dock, down by the county house.
There's another one.
Raised $15,000, built the docks. Here's the docks, but there was no plan for overhead and maintenance, because like anything else, they wear and tear and they finally fell apart, and there was no mechanism.
It's no different than LD 290 state. Here's this pretty thing, but now you guys have to figure out how
Correct.
to maintain it and do
Yes,
it.
yes, ma'am.
Denise?
So, the conversation about renovating and having somebody on the 3rd floor, that's one option. The other option is to be able to keep it in the business fabric, is to actually condoize the bottom level, the street level, and turn that into retail, privately sell the suites. And you're not a landlord, you're actually selling the entire 1st floor, and you renovate the 2nd and 3rd floors for your offices and your meeting space. That's an option. I mean, those are, public-private partnerships that happen all over the country. And can this community sustain that sort of thing? I don't know. Is that what you want? I mean, that's an option. I haven't discussed this with Tim or Jen. This is just something that I came up with, just sitting around the table, so I hope I'm okay. But that's an option, and I think that idea just spun from your conversation about can we do some of the 3rd floor. You'd be better off putting everything into the business level on the 1st floor.
And then one of my other notes. Oh. So I'm just as you can see, I'm not either for or against moving, really. I'm just trying to make sure I'm kind of being a devil's advocate, because you gotta put a good plan together to move. So my question is, if, like, if we stayed in the current town hall, what's stopping us from, because one of the selling points is that if we move, we will be putting the current town hall site back on the books, right? What's stopping us from taking the Norton Railroad Ave site and putting it back on the books? And what would that cost be? That, you see what I mean? I see the benefit of putting the.
Selling that,
I'm not saying do it, I'm just saying that is still.
but do what with it?
Sell the
Sell it
Norton
to the
Ave.
same people that would buy the town hall,
We'd be giving up a lot of.
where, but not necessarily, right? I mean, it's an option. I'm just saying, these are questions that I know I'm going to field. I know,
I don't think that it would be worth 1.5 million that far.
Yeah.
But- And we would lose parking
You
spaces.
want
and
parking.
hotels.
Part of the reason we built those 82 spaces was to support the businesses. Both the Wentworth Douglas facility and well, York Hospital has their parking lot, but basically the Wentworth Health Partners, whatever, they help populate that, and there's other business spots that they use for their employee parking. So we have to consider that. It's kind of like, okay, we built it, now we're gonna take it away. I guess I really don't like that idea.
I mean, it's not really an idea, it's just an option to point out that there are options within the options that we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Right, so,
There's another option on town hall property. If you don't want the town hall downtown, you have where the Red Barn is. Plenty of room right there for
That's
town hall.
restricted to recreation, unfortunately.
That's what?
Restricted to recreation only.
I'm not sure on that. I think it ends on the back side of that. I don't believe that was part of the easement. I think that barn was there before. But I could be wrong because we looked at it for the location. Excuse me, the town hall, and that never came up.
I will relook at that
So-
information.
Shoot me an email because I'm curious, because we looked at it hard for the police station. So I'd be curious
Okay.
how we missed that.
So if you didn't pick that location, must have been for a reason.
They wanted it in-house.
They wanted what?
They wanted the police station in town.
Oh,
I'll leave that comment there.
I think again, I appreciate all the work and I'm glad that you guys had to do it, not me. It's really good. No, there was something else. No, I think that was it.
But while we're there, Ted, the only thing I'd like to bring up, Tim, because it got brought up to me and I know it's been brought up before. If we do decide to build a new town hall and we do decide downtown location, it can't look like this building. It needs to fit in with the way downtown looks. It needs to, just like York Hospital did theirs, Wentworth Douglas did theirs. It needs to fit the look of South Berwick. This is way too industrial for downtown. So it's just if Mike works on something, make it pretty and make it fit in.
Mike worked on your hospital.
See, I gave him credit, didn't even know. It just, it's something that we need to.
He did a great
We need to
job on that.
Yeah.
Truly.
And the green space that we're talking about in front of the current town hall, that's a actual park, right? Is that a diet, like a,
There's a memorial there.
right? is it
Uh-huh.
more-
The granite benches, right?
But is it,
We got that, plus we have the Vietnam Memorial there.
I'll have to look, see if that's an actual written up park, I just didn't know how that would.
I haven't heard of
I
it.
don't-
Like, you know,
It's
I know
not,
it's
it's
a memorial.
not listed, it's not listed under the parks.
That's
No.
why I looked at you.
No, we had Counting House, we had
There's a lot.
that one,
Joy.
Joy,
Great.
yeah. But yeah, that wasn't one where we, again, I could be wrong, because I could be wrong about the Red Barn.
I'll let you know.
I can't. Loser buys an ice cream?
But it's,
Okay.
no, I think just to finish up, I think as far as asking my thoughts, I think it's a good thought to, and good plan to be able to put in front of the people and have good conversations about. I think this is at least a start to really look at, good footing, to look at what we have and really what we could potentially be, and have some really fruitful conversations once we get past emotion, which will be, I think, the harder part that we'll have. And I think that once we get past emotion of what we're used to and what we'd like, I think you guys have come up with a really good plan and option. So thank you very much.
I am wondering if with our engagement with Sebago Technics coming up, if we can pose to them from a traffic in and out kind of flow perspective, sort of like a hypothetical of like, if we were to relocate town hall to that location, if they could provide us with any insights as to, because I mean, traffic is an issue regardless in both locations. I feel very strongly that I love the first floor public space, like having the clerk's office being on a first floor. Certainly any type of meeting space not being on the third floor of a building. It seems like both options sort of would give us that. I think you all have done a ton of work and obviously considered like what seems to be like all of the town-owned properties to the best of your ability. And I don't want to, I'm glad you guys did that, and it's your role to come to us with, these are the things we considered, and here's the information, and that's what you've done today. I think, John, to your point about the committee, my fear with, like, I feel like when you bring a big group of people together with no options, a decision will never be made. So I think like certainly some type of committee option could work to consider a couple of options, but I think give it to the townspeople to come up with a place to put it. I wish I could say that I feel like that would work, but I feel like it would.
So we did it with the police station. We gave them 2 options and they came back to us with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And we had a public hearing that never went anywhere.
Yeah.
I just want them to look at the possible ideas and get public feedback.
Mhm.
I'm not looking for them to tell us where.
Mhm.
I'm really looking for them to engage the public at that level. Like I said, with the business owners and with community leaders, they're out there talking to people every day.
Mhm.
Get us the feedback. That's all I'm looking for. Not really for them to give us suggestions of where to put it, because that never works.
Yeah.
Pretty sure of that.
I sort of I agree on like, we for sure need to have all of the information to be able to really sell this and get the public on board. And no matter what, there's going to be groups of people that are not on board with whatever option. We're never going to please everybody. But I wasn't around for all the public hearings and stuff for the police station. I came in basically after all the hard work was done. So you guys can speak to that a little bit better, but like, I know that the police station, there was concern about the police station, obviously in Newtown, but from what I could gather, it was, a lot of it was around like removal of that green space, which this proposal doesn't do. The relocation proposal doesn't do, and concern about like the lights and the sirens and people going in and out and stuff from the police station. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm curious, like, I would almost be interested in perhaps posing, because it seems like we're down to like 2 options: renovate, move to Railroad Ave, unless somebody can come up with some other miraculous option, to just like have a public hearing almost like sooner rather than later, just to get a sense from people of like, is the Shoetown neighborhood so far off the table that we are really going to have to spend the money on an assessment to be able to sell it? Or are people going to be okay with that idea? Because I mean, how much do we think an assessment is going to be? 30,000 at
Minimum.
least, at minimum? I
Like,
mean, that,
It'll have to be an engineering assessment, you know,
Yeah.
we'll have to get engineers in, mechanical, electrical,
Mhm.
plumbing engineers, you know, and then really look at it hard and then put some real numbers to it. We could
Mhm.
probably an estimator, you know,
Mhm.
third-party estimator come out and say it's gonna cost this much to renovate, you know, so it's not a little task.
Mhm.
It must be done.
I say, you wouldn't sell me without knowing what it was gonna cost. Because there's nobody that sits at this council table with the exception of Jack. And that's not even his genre. None of us have any experience in any of that,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not gonna give my opinion on it unless I have some cold hard facts to tell the people. It's gonna cost us $4 million to renovate this, so I think it's a good idea if we build a new town hall.
Mhm.
I need that to be able to say that. We knew that the police station would not work the way it was. We had numbers. We knew that wasn't functioning since the 80s. That was an easier sell. I need something for me to be able to go to the public and say, it's really gonna cost us. And you know, I hate spending money. But I think this is money well spent. I don't think we're gonna sell it unless we do our homework and show the public of what that building's gonna take to renovate.
Without any facts and figures. I really like your analysis, Jeff, about the subjective versus objective and emotion and functionality. If we go to a public hearing at this stage without any backup, we're gonna be buying a bucket full of emotion. And we're gonna get those kind of reactions, and we're gonna just, create a lot of sparks, and it's not gonna be productive. So we have to, if we're gonna have a public hearing, we have to be able to show them something. And then at that point in time, we have, even though who knows what costs are gonna be when it comes time to turn a shovel, because of, increased price and stuff like that. But at least we'll have a balanced view to present to the public at that point. So we still have homework to do. And I think we need to be able to allow the people to vent and to express their opinions. We can't deny the emotional side of it, but at the same time, we can temper that with objective commentary.
One of you guys were saying something.
What's that?
Weren't you guys, I thought like one of you guys were gonna say something earlier.
The only thing I was gonna say is obviously we know the first floor is not viable. So that was one floor off. So
Mhm.
we know the third floor doesn't have AC. We know that. Just thinking out.
So we don't make any decision that'll get made tonight.
Yeah.
we wanted to put this in front of you, and I think there's, some more homework that we have to do to go forward. One of the things that I want to leave you with this thought tonight as we get ready to conclude. How old is that building? Jack, how old is this?
It
I
was
think it was 1933,
1926.
26, okay.
They're almost 100-year-old building. Some of the systems in there, we don't know what they are, what they're working. Every day that goes by, we come to work and we go home, we close the lights, we shut the doors. It's a good day. Nothing catastrophic in that building's happened. One of the things John brings up a good point is us recognizing the value of what we have versus what we'll need and what we need to do to stay open and continue working business. We don't want to end up with frozen pipes January 8th at 8 o'clock in the morning, that building being closed for 4 weeks, you have to relocate the town offices. That is going to be an expense that the taxpayers are going to come yell at you folks about. You think you got questions now, there's going to be questions. That's an old building there. When I walk through that building, I can tell you there are a lot of unknowns. We'll look in the boiler room, see the old knob and tube wiring. We'll look at the roof and look at all the panels on the third floor that has stains on. How much is that roof leaking? Why is it leaking? How much rot is behind it? I don't know any of that stuff. Stand beside the windows in the wintertime, feel the cold drafts coming in. There's a lot of unknowns, and every day that goes by, you can understand, we're trying to be as efficient as we can with the taxpayer dollar and figure out ways to do this. We have got, as painful as it may be, emotion-wise or emotion-wise not, we have to move this. I should say we, I don't have to do anything. I can go to work tomorrow. I have an office. If it goes bad, I'll take my laptop to work from home and I don't know what I'll tell you next, but if we don't do something, time is gonna get us. This building's getting older. It's almost 100 years old. So you know what old homes do, and you know how that works. So we've gotta start thinking about something, doing something, because it's easily ignored. I get it, because we just go on with our daily lives. But I gotta be the thorn in the bush here. I gotta be the bad guy to say to the council and the citizens and the public and everybody, you got an old building and the roof leaks and the windows aren't so tight. And if this was your house, what would you do? Would you be saying, to me, oh, Tim, it's okay, don't worry about it? Okay. You know, so I want the council to be aware as we move forward. And we'll continue to look at the plan. I'm not asking you to make decisions tonight. I wanted to get you some feedback from you tonight. That was the important piece. And we got some great feedback, and we'll interject all that stuff, go back and we'll reassemble and start looking at what's some other proposal, what's next.
Okay.
I wanted to comment. When we're dealing with public facilities, public equipment, could be a fire truck, could be a bulldozer, it could be a building. There's a pretty solid rule that if you have that old truck, building, the old truck, and it needs some work, when you get to a point where you're exceeding 50% of the replacement cost, really have to take a good hard look as to whether it's worth it. And most of the time, it's not worth it. If you can keep going on at 25% of the replacement cost, yeah, do it. But in 50% isn't the hard rule, but it is a pretty good indicator. So if maybe to front end, again, we have variables with estimating new construction costs, accelerators and things like that. We don't know where it's going to go exactly. Just like we didn't know what the bond is going to do for this building. But when we get the consultants in, and all of a sudden the tabulation starts getting up past 50% of what that new cost might be, we can go timeout. I think we've learned enough. And that works. It works with capital equipment. And so that's just what I'll leave you with as far as that analysis.
All I have, Madam Chair.
Do you need anything else from us? Any other?
Nope, I think we'll take the feedback and we'll go back and we'll have, we'll sit around the table and, share our thoughts at that point. I'll get back with Mike and Sarah and we'll kind of, we have a little focused working group right now that's just us and try to kick the can down the road a little further. And it's not that we're not including the public, it was just not at that level yet. We're in the 30,000 foot range. We just, the public gets there at 20,000 or 10,000 foot range. There's certainly many.
I've heard from the public.
Well, we have to.
Yeah.
We have to, and that's good. I'm glad that they take an interest in the building. And one of the things, and John's absolutely right, the public's gonna need to know what's wrong with this building. Why are we asking for a new building? Other than a one-day assessment where someone walked around with a camera and the photos, I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more to do, but tonight's idea was to show you what we've done and to get some more feedback so we can try to move forward a little bit further. So I have some stuff and then we'll go from there at some point. I'll probably show up on the agenda item down the road. And we're gonna try to do what we can feasibly to make sure the building's sound and tight for the weather, for the winter, and get through that. And that's, the number one goal, is make the house weather tight for the winter as best we can. And try to keep it going as long as we can. But down the road, this is a project that I think needs our attention.
Yes, for sure. I think that we all agree on that, for sure, that we need to do something about town hall.
All I have.
Anyone else? Last chance.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
Thank you all
time.
very much.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
coming
you,
in
public
tonight.
attention. Thank you, Mike, Sarah, appreciate it.